here. I want to introduce our next speaker, another change to the program. Will has a new employer now. He's a data scientist at Revel Transit, which is an electric moped sharing service operating in New York City, Washington, and Austin, Texas. Will's work includes transportation demand modeling, spatial analysis, and data visualization to support expansion planning, fleet operations, and customer support. Will holds an MS in data science from Columbia and bachelor's degrees in philosophy and economics from Duke.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. So my name is Will Geary. I'm a data scientist at Revel Transit, and I'm excited to talk with you today about visualizing transit frequency using a tool called TransitFlow that I developed as a graduate student, actually. So here's a bit about my background. I'll tell you briefly about Revel, but the reason I'm here is for my TransitFlow projects, not Revel, so I'll be very quick about that. But we're an electric moped rental service, so sort of like kick scooters in that there's an app and you can rent on-demand vehicles that are dockless, but these are two-person registered motor vehicles similar to a Vespa-style scooter. Simple pricing. We take safety very seriously. Here are some of the must-haves: 21 with a valid driver's license, and you must wear a helmet. And we're operating in DC, which is mostly why I wanted to include these slides, as well as New York and Austin at the moment. So quickest pitch ever. So on to TransitFlow. So I developed TransitFlow. It started as a passion project as a graduate student at Columbia. I was thinking a lot about how important transit frequency is for the customer experience, and was feeling kind of frustrated with the tools that were available to communicate about transit frequency. Primarily, this is done using timetables. Different systems have different timetables. You can see 3 examples here. I find them very overwhelming and hard to sort of get an intuitive sense of frequency by looking at a timetable. So I started doing some research into other ways of talking about transit frequency. This is something that people have been doing for hundreds of years. There's a cool old schedule from Paris to Lyon, 1886. Isochrone map, 1882. And then fast forwarding to today, we use things like countdown clocks to get a sense of when the next train or bus is coming. And then probably most of us use navigation apps to make comparisons. But I wanted to take these things a step further and combine both frequency and the spatial aspect of the transit system into one project. So it started as a couple of sort of exploratory fun projects. This is a day in the life of the New York City subway system. I started playing with the different types of data sets that were available in New York City, such as green and yellow taxi trips. And this sort of culminated in a project called Multimodal Symphony. I'll fast forward a bit here. In my attempt to throw everything that I could find for New York City onto a single map. And this got a lot of interest, and I wanted to then develop a open source free tool that other people could use to generate animated transit maps where they lived and worked. So that's what TransitFlow is. And it works like this. It's an open source library built with Python and Java. You input the geographic bounding box that you want to visualize and pretty much hit run. And you're presented with this interactive animated map. So here every blue dot is a bus, every red dot is a subway car, yellow dots are trains. You can see the pink dots are ferries. And at the bottom of the map, there's a stacked bar chart that tells you at any given moment how many buses, trains, ferries, etc. are scheduled to be in motion at that time. So this is just schedule. It does not show real-world deviations from the schedule, which is also interesting, but that's not covered here. Here's Washington, D.C. I'll fast forward a little bit because it's pretty slow until 5. So I find it fun to do if I'm in a new city and just want to get like a quick grasp of what the transit options that are available to me look like. So I'll show just a few more cities. Here's San Francisco. And then zooming out to the Bay Area region, there's almost like 100 different transit operators in California. So I find this helpful to help me figure out how the different pieces of the puzzle fit together. Here's Chicago, got the metro in there. Oops, look like we lost the signal back here. The newspaper in Paris asked me to make a video, so I tossed on some Parisian sounding music. And this is my favorite. So a grad student in Toronto made an audioization of Toronto transit flows. He set subways to pitch, buses to tempo, and streetcars to volume. I won't make you listen to the whole day. So my sort of dream, like kind of a white whale, was to map the whole world's transit, flowing at once. That's not going to happen yet, mostly because there's not data available everywhere. But I've sort of zoomed out and done the New York, New Jersey metro area, and then the largest I've done has been from Boston to Washington, D.C. And I enjoy seeing like the New York City subway as sort of the heartbeat of this system, if you will. But again, I find this sort of intuitive to quickly glance at a moving map and understand how different pieces are interacting with each other. Here's a quick slide on how it works. So I was an intern at MapZen at the time. Does anyone know about Transitland website? It's an open repository of transit data, schedules, routes, etc. So they have an API that you can ask to do a dump, like a bulk download of schedule and route data anywhere in the world. So that's where I'm getting the data from with a Python script, and then visualizing it using a tool called Processing, which is a Java library for visual art and graphics. I'll skip the GCFS slide, as if you're in this universe, you probably already know about that. Here's the GitHub URL. It's on the Transitland profile, and the repository is called Transitland Processing Animation. And I have a bunch of more cities available to be viewed on Vimeo. And I'm thinking about how to make this more useful, and would love feedback as well as contribution. It's open source, so you can make pull requests and changes if you want. But I would love to be able to have the vehicles get bigger and smaller based on how many people are riding them. Obviously, that data is not publicly available. Thinking about how would you use this to then compare real time versus schedule, maybe side by side over a small portion of the day, or maybe coloring the dots based on how on time or late they are, something like that. So I'm excited about where this could go, and would love to hear ideas and feedback. And that's all. Thanks.
All right. Well, you were very quick, so we do have a couple. Thank you. We do have a couple of minutes if there's any questions while we transition to our next speaker. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, please.
So thank you. Actually, a while ago I used the tool.
Okay.
It's very nice to see that.
What? Where did you use it on?
Santiago.
Oh, and you put it on Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
And one question: who do you think that it would be good? I think that trial behavior would be very useful.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Trial behavior would be very useful to have like metrics by spatial unit, for example. You would know if I put a window, how many buses passes through that window in a period of time, and then of course you can keep going.
Rather than the whole map at once,
Yeah.
but a custom window.
And then put like and have like an output of metric of a table of like some statistics. Do you think that would be something difficult, or?
No, definitely not. It would be less difficult than animating it also. Yeah.
Because in general, what my experience with GTFS data in general is like it's kind of messy. Especially if you use different places of the world.
Luckily, so what Transitland provides is a schema that is just a little bit on top of GTFS. So I think it's a little bit cleaner to work with than GTFS directly, but I hear you, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Have you thought about using aviation data for the country level view, where individual cities would just be blobs of activity, but planes would be very kind of interesting at the country level?
I have thought about that and have not done it yet, but I think that is really interesting. Yeah. Is there like a central repository of trips with start and stop?
I think so. I think flight paths are defined more than just origin destination, but actually the
actual path.
So that'd be cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Did you try to use JavaScript instead of processing it? If it can be done in JavaScript, and there have been some similar visualizations, you can take advantage of some map APIs to show the movement of the...
Yeah, I would love to get this in the browser. I chose Java at first because I mostly wanted to make videos and GIFs that would be like easily shareable on social media and whatnot. Getting like 50,000 moving dots in the browser is difficult, but with the work, especially that Uber is doing with their Kepler GL package, it seems like that's not as hard as it was a couple of years ago when I started this. So certainly that's a future direction, definitely.
Yes.
Following up on the aviation question, could you talk a little bit about the benefits of the GTFS versus just a regular set of probes? How difficult do you think it would be to replicate for another mode that doesn't have a GTFS type standard?
It would probably be even easier. Really all you need are start point and time and end point and time as just a table. If you run any of the examples on the GitHub, you'll see what the tabular data structure that I'm using looks like. So I've seen people convert this to other projects that were not GTFS based. It would probably just be even easier than it is currently. And if you do that, please let me know. I'd love to see what we can do.
Okay.